everyone, this is Ashley Tucker from My Favorite Things. Today I'm making a Valentine's Day card, and I started out that card by stamping a background stamp onto some Nina Classic Crest Solar White cardstock. So of course when you use a background stamp in the MISTI, you got to take out that pad that's inside the MISTI so that you have enough space for the rubber stamp. I'm using the background stamp called Never Ending Love, and I prepped my paper with a powder tool before stamping. So I'm stamping with Versamark ink, and then I'm going to emboss with a clear embossing powder. So you're not going to actually be able to see the design too much until after I start ink blending on top of it. I'm going to be using Distress Oxide ink to blend over the top of this design, and all of the embossed areas are going to resist that ink so that those areas will stay white. I picked out 4 different colors of the Distress Oxide ink. I am using Squeezed Lemonade, Abandoned Coral, Tumbled Glass, and Seedless Preserves, and I'm blending all of those colors using some blending brushes. Just like when I'm using blender sponges, I like to use circular motions with my blender brushes. I feel like that gives me the best looking blend. I also think that it's really helpful when you're trying to blend 2 colors together to go back and forth between the 2 different inks and just keep blending the area together until it looks the way that you want it to look. So, for example, with the purple and the blue here, I'd start with the blue and lay down my blue, and then I lay down my purple, and then I go back to the blue and I try to blend into the purple, and then I go back to the purple and try to blend into the blue until I have a really smooth looking blend. Once you're all done with your ink blending, I think that it's really important to grab a clean cloth and wipe down the entire thing. And this is because that Distress Oxide ink is actually going to sit right on top of your embossed areas and kind of cover them up a little bit. And it's not going to be as bright white as it could be. But as you can see here, I'm wiping it off and it just brightens up that white quite a bit because I'm washing off the Distress Oxide ink that's just kind of sitting right on top of those lines. Next, I took my pearlescent white watercolor, which is a white watercolor with just a really nice shimmer to it. And I'm just going to sprinkle droplets of that all over the background. Once that background was totally dry, I cut it down to be just a little bit smaller than an A2 size card base, and then I used foam tape to pop it up. I then grabbed the Tall Love letter die, and that just cuts out these really tall letters that spell the word love. And then I took the negative cut from that die cut, and I'm going to use it to figure out where I want to place the letters on the card. And then I'm just going to very lightly with a pencil trace those letters so that I have a guide when I'm gluing those letters down. This just helps me to make sure that the letters are nice and straight and right in the middle of the card. Next, I'm going to glue down those letters using some liquid adhesive. You can't see the pencil lines very well in the video, but I can see them just well enough to be able to place these. Now, you bet I did think about popping these up with foam tape, even though they are really skinny little letters. But I did decide to just go with the liquid adhesive because I'm going to be adding even more dimension after this with another sentiment. For that other sentiment, I'm going to pull out the How to Say I Love You stamp set. This stamp set has a lot of really great sentiments for Valentine's Day, and also you could definitely use them for anniversary cards as well. I picked out the sentiment which says, "All of me loves all of you." And you know that the whole time that I was finishing up this card, I had that song stuck in my head. And I stamped that with VersaFine Onyx Black ink. And then I used some scissors to fussy cut the sentiment out. This might be a little bit difficult to see in the video, but I'm about to make a mistake and I'll tell you all about it. I did not want to wait for this to dry, even though it is pigment ink, and I should have waited for it to dry before cutting it out. And I learned that I should have, because right here, this is where I noticed that I used my thumb to pick up the word love from the middle of the sentiment, and I stamped it like a ghost stamp onto the beginning of the sentiment. Luckily, it wasn't very noticeable, and I was able to take a sanding eraser and just erase the very faint stamping that happened right next to the word all. Not too bad of a mistake. I was able to fix it pretty easily, but just keep in mind if you're stamping with a pigment ink, you probably should give it a decent amount of time to dry. I popped that sentiment up right on top of the word love on the bottom, and then I grabbed my Wink of Stella glitter brush and I added some sparkle to those large letters. The last thing that I did to finish up this card was I picked out a bunch of different sequins that I thought kind of matched the background a little bit. I've got some pinks, some yellows, and some blues, and I scattered them all across the whole background, and then I glued them down using some liquid adhesive. And that's it for today's card. I hope that you enjoyed today's video and that it gave you some inspiration for your own cards. I hope you have a wonderful day today, and I'll see you next time.